Hello everyone, this is day 2 of our 10 days AWS Masterclass. So in this session, we will talk about the AWS IAM or the AWS Identity and Access Management. So before doing the hands-on part, let's talk about some concepts in AWS IAM. So we'll start by defining what AWS IAM is. AWS Identity and Access Management is a key service that helps you to securely manage who can access your AWS resources and what action they can perform. Don't forget this, who can access your AWS resources and what actions they can perform. It ensures that only the right people or the legit applications have the proper permission to use your AWS resources. So with this service, you can create users, you can create groups, you can create roles, and also assign permissions to them. For example, you can allow one user to only view files in your S3 bucket while letting another user upload and delete files. So that's your choice. And permissions are controlled using policies. So basically, policies are simple rules that define what is allowed and what is denied to some specific user. It can be to a user or to a group, or it can even be to an application or to a service in AWS environment. So in the AWS security, there are two main aspects of security for managing security in the AWS environment. These are authentication and authorization. So the first one, authentication, is figuring out who is accessing your AWS resources. So IAM helps you to identify users and systems in two main ways. So as I said earlier, authentication is figuring out who is accessing your AWS environment. Check that using the authentication. So basically, there are two main ways to do that. The first one is users, the second one is roles. So basically, users are individuals such as employees, developers, or administrators who need direct access to your AWS account. So they log into your system using usernames and password, and you can control what each person is allowed to do. So basically, the password and the username is also provided by you. The second one is roles. So basically, roles are temporary identities which are assigned to system applications or external users. So in the authentication part, there are two main ways. The first one is user, the second one is roles. Don't forget that. The second main aspects of security in AWS environment is authorization. Basically, authorization in the authentication part, you will figure out who is accessing your AWS environment. So in the next step, in the authorization part, you will define what the authenticated users or roles are allowed to do. So to do this, you will use the IAM policies to set permissions to those authenticated users. So these policies are rules that describe actions like read or write, or they can describe resources such as an S3 bucket or an EC2 instance or relational database, anything. And they can also contain conditions like time limits or IP restriction, so under which access is granted. So let's take an example for the authorization part. For example, you can create policy that allows a user to view files in an necessary bucket, but prevents prevent them from uploading or deleting files. Basically, you will only give permission to that authenticated users to see or to view files in S3 bucket. So while preventing them from uploading or altering files or deleting files. So I think this is enough for the theoretical part. So let's create the IAM user. So we will go to the search bar and we will search for the IAM service or the identity and access management. We will click on the IAM to go to the IAM dashboard. So as you can see, I am in the identity and access management dashboard. There are a lot of options in the sidebar. So we want to create a user. So we will click on this user button. So let's click there. As you can see, this AWS account already have four other accounts like Grace Academy, ETH, Gudisa, developer, and so on. So let's create a new one. We will click the create user button. Here we have to provide the username. Let's say the username is Emmanuel or Emmanuel. So here there is a checkbox. It says provide user access to the AWS Management Console. Basically, this option is this checkbox is giving you sorry an option to give to the user to the created user, either to give him an access to this web interface or not to give him. Basically, we want to give him the AWS Management Console access, so we will check this checkbox. So when he sign into this AWS environment, he can access the web-based interface of AWS. Then here we want to create an IAM user, so we will choose this one. Then on the password creation part, there are two options. The first one is auto-generated. Basically, AWS will generate a random password for you. We don't want that. We want to put our own custom password. So let's write that. Sorry. So we have filled our own custom password here. It says user must create a new password at next sign in. So we want the user to use our custom password. We don't want to create any one when he sign in. So we will uncheck this checkbox basically. Yeah, we will uncheck since we don't want them to create another password or a new password. Instead we want them to use this password, our own set password. So next we will proceed by clicking the next button. Okay, save. So here, add user to the group, copy permission, attach policies. So we want to attach policies directly to the user. So all these are policies. Basically, these are AWS managed policies. So AWS provides a predefined policies or permissions for us. So we want to give an administrative access to this user. To what user? To Emmanuel. So we will check the administrative part. For example, if you want to give an necessary permission to this user, here we will search S3. Then there are a lot of accessory policies that have been created by AWS or AWS managed policies. Amazon S3 full access, Amazon S3 object lambda something, outpost full access, outpost something, read only access. So we want to give a full access to this user. We will check this checkbox. Then I think we will proceed. As you can see, here it says review and create. So to create a user or an IAM user in your AWS environment, well, it's not that complex. So I think we have uh, completed the process. So then we will click this button, create a user. As you can see, you can view and download the user's password below or email users instruction for signing into the AWS Management Console. So basically, there is an employee by the name of Emmanuel. So you will email this credential to him so that he can log into this AWS environment and uh, utilize or work on his project. So we will email him the console sign-in URL, his username, and the console password. So I think this is enough for creation of the IAM user. You can also download CSV file and send him to the user called Emmanuel through Slack or any way that you prefer. So I think this is enough for the creation part. Now let's set up groups in AWS IAM and let's talk some concepts about IAM groups. Okay, now as you can see, I am in my IAM dashboard. So now we will set up groups. So before creating a group, I think we have talk about what group is. So first we will try to elaborate the concept of groups using analogy. So uh, think of IAM groups as teams or departments within a company or within your company. So each team has a specific role and a specific access to certain tools or resources in your AWS environment. So instead of managing each employee's access individually, you manage it at the group level. So instead of assigning permissions to each user individually, you will group users with the similar role in a group. Then you will assign permissions and policies to that group. So by default, all users in that group will have that permissions. So in AWS, an IAM group is a collection of IAM users. So groups helps you to manage permissions for multiple users at once, making it easier to assign access based on roles like developers or admins. For example, you could create a dev group or a development group with the permissions to access certain AWS resources, and all developers would belong to that group, and all developers in that group uh, will have access, yeah, will have the same access, all the developers in that group. So for example, you have HR team, the HR team has access to employee records. So all employees in the HR team are placed in the HR group, and that group access to the HR system. So in that group, for example, the users in the HR group will have access to the HR system. So you don't have to give permission to each HR employee individually. You will just assign the permission to the HR group, and users in that group will have the same access. So let's create an IAM user. So if you want, for example, now as you can see, I am in the dashboard, in the identity and access management dashboard. So I don't have to use the search bar. So in the sidebar, there is the user groups option. So we will click in that thing, in that button. So here, as you can see, there isn't any group. So we will create a group. So this group need a group name. Uh, let's say dev team, dev group. So in this group, we have to add users to that group. So let's add Emmanuel, Grace Academy, and I think, yeah, Gudisa. So then we will attach permissions to that group. So when we attach, for example, an administrative access to the dev group, all these three users will have the administrative access in your AWS environment. So you have to be careful. Let's say I wanna give EC2 access to this group. So Amazon EC2 full access. So when I check this checkbox, all these three users in the dev group will have full access to the EC2 environment, to the EC2 resources. So let's create this user group. Creating group, yeah. So as you can see, we have created a dev team, no, a dev group. So in the permissions tab, you can see the permissions attached to this group. As you can see, this group has Amazon EC2 full access. Damn. Woo! So all these three users have access to Amazon EC2 because they belong to this dev group. I think this is easy, and it's not difficult to understand. So I think this is enough for creating groups. So now let's talk about I think let's talk about creating policy. Till now we have been attaching, for example, here we have attached Amazon EC2 full access to the dev group. But as you can see here, the type of this policy is AWS managed. So basically these are predefined policies by AWS. So let's say you wanted to create a custom policy to your groups or to your users in your AWS account. So to do that, you will create a custom policy using policies. So now let's talk about that. Okay, now let's create a custom policy. So to create a custom policy, in the sidebar, as you can see, there is a policy button. You will click there. Then you will see an AWS predefined or AWS managed policies right here to choose from. But we want to create a custom policy. So to do that, we will choose the create policy. We will click the create policy button. So here we will create our own policy. So there are two options. There are two editors to create our own policy. The first one is the visual one. In this session, we will use the visual one. There is also a JSON option. Basically, in the JSON option, you have two options. The first one is to write your policy directly here, or you can also you can also paste your policy here. The policy may come from ChatGPT or from AWS communities, anywhere, but you can paste here and customize it. So in this session, we will use the visual one. So to create your custom policy, the first thing you have to do is you will select a service. You will choose an AWS service for which you want to create the policy. I want to create an S3 policy. So I will choose the AWS S3 service. Then the next thing that you have to do is you will specify the actions you want to allow or deny. So I want to allow, for example, only read option. So I want to allow all read actions. So in this policy is a read only policy. So as you can see, we have chosen the action. Then we will define the resource. Basically the resource define the resources the policy applies to. You can select, as you can see here, a specific resource, for example a specific bucket, or you can allow all resources, so all buckets, all objects, all images, all videos, all everything in accessory storage. So I will do that. So I will allow all resources. So this policy will give access to a user or to a group or to just to someone, will give access a read only access to all resources. So as you can see, there is also another option, which is condition. So you can refine permissions by adding conditions. So yeah, by adding conditions, like these conditions can be IP filtering, like IP address restriction. As you can see here, I can click here and I can filter. Uh, I can filter by using IP addresses. So we will not do that in this session. So I think we have done everything here. Okay, yeah, let's proceed. Let's create. So in the review and the create part, we will give the policy a name. So let's say Grace accessory. No, yeah, let's say accessory access. Access. You can add a description. So as you can see, the access level is full red. The services AWS, the resource are all resources. There isn't any condition none. So request condition none. Then we will create the policy. As you can see, it's creating the policy. So, okay, this is a feedback. So let's search. I think it's Grace. Yeah. As you can see, the type is customer managed or it's custom policy. So Grace is free access. So let's attach this custom policy, for example, to uh, to this group, to the dev group. So we'll go to the dev group. Then in the permission part, we will add permissions here. So attach policies. Then we will search for the Grace accessory something access. We will click here, attach policies. So, okay, it's loading policies. As you can see, sorry, sorry, we have two policies. The first one is Amazon EC2 full access. The second one is Grace S3 access. So basically, all these three users have this Grace S3 access permission because they belong to the dev group. So this way we can create a custom policy and attach to the group. You can even attach this policy to a specific user. For example, we can attach this policy to the user called Emmanuel. So all you have to do is here you will come to this part and they will add permission. So you will attach policy directly. Here you will search for your custom policy. Basically, it's Grace something policy. So next, add permission. So let's see the, yeah, as you can see with administrative access, Amazon is full access, then you will have Grace accessory access. As you can see, there are attached via, there are two ways. The first one is he have access to this policy through the group dev because he belong to that group. Then now we have attached it directly to the user. So I think this is enough for the custom policy part. So I believe it's becoming kind of a long session. So we will wrap it here. So by yourself, you can explore roles, as you can see here. Basically, roles are temporary. Temporary. Uh, what was the word? Roles are sorry. Roles are again. Sorry, wait. That I'm recalling. So what was the word? Yeah, roles are temporary identities assigned to systems or applications or external users. You can create a role and attach this role to a specific identity. It can be an external user or an application like EC2 to anything. So basically, role are uh, temporary identity. So explore it by yourself. You can take this as an assignment. So I think this is enough. In the next video, we will talk about EC2 in depth. So I think this is enough. Thank you.